What's up, guys? Welcome back to Avys Designs. My name is Mike. Today I'm going to start building a rustic table and benches. So stay tuned for this one. It's going to be sweet. So this project is going to be for my neighbor. They ordered a rustic table and benches, kind of modeled off something that we saw online at an expensive furniture store. I'm using actually 2x6s and some 2x4s for the entire construction of this entire table. The top is going to be these 2x6s that I first used the table saw to get a nice straight edge on both sides. It's not a perfectly straight edge because I'm using the table saw referencing off the fence. I didn't have a jointer at the time of making this tabletop or a planer, which I regret. I wish I had those tools. When I ended up making the benches for this table, I went out and got a planer and a jointer off of Craigslist, which helped me make the tops of the benches, or I guess the seat of the benches, a little bit more flat than how this tabletop came out. It worked out fine in the end. It was just a lot of hand planing. But I joined the tabletop here in two separate sections. This section that you're looking at is one of the halves of the tabletop, and it took a lot of hand planing. I spent a ton of time hand planing the tops, each section, and then I tried to joint the edges of where these two halves of the tabletop would meet by using a straight edge and a circular saw to try to get those sides flat and so that that glue joint would be nice and tight. And then I went ahead and glued up the two halves together. Again, this didn't come out perfectly flat. It really wasn't flat at all. I had to do a lot of hand planing and belt sanding to get it to be a little bit more flat. This was a nightmare. This was the toughest part of the project. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of frustration trying to figure out how to get that whole top flat, but it ended up working okay. Just a lot of work. A lot of hand planing, a lot of belt sanding. The next step was cutting the tabletop to length. I used a straight edge and a circular saw for that. And then I wanted to add kind of breadboard ends. I don't know if breadboard end is the right word for it because the joinery is not really a breadboard end style joinery. It's just biscuits that are holding those ends onto the main structure of the table. But I thought it would, first of all, cover up the end grain of the whole table so that really the only end grain you're seeing is this board at the end. And it would kind of give it a nice little touch to the tabletop since this is what you're going to be seeing most of on the table. When I glued up those ends onto each side of the table, I left them a little bit proud of the rest of the tabletop so that I could come back with that hand plane and sander and level it all out. The next step was to start on the leg structure, and so for that I was using 2x4s. So I cut them to a little bit more than what I'll need, a little bit longer than what I'll need for each piece. And then I screwed the ends in together. I would come back and cut those portions off where the screw holes were just to kind of keep the two pieces that I was gluing together in line and nice and tight. And then I came back and cut those little parts where the screws were off once the glue was dried. And then tried to mill them up now with the new jointer. Well, it's not a new jointer, but new to me. And planer to get those nice and square all the way around to the final dimension that I needed. And then I just cut all those pieces. After I had all the stock cut, I cut them all to the final lengths that I would need and kind of laid them out in the orientation that they would be getting glued together. On the bottom section, I cut out this little groove, I guess it's a dado maybe, to accept a bottom cross member that's going to stretch between the two leg sections to kind of tie everything together and give the entire table a little bit more structural rigidity. And then I kind of chamfered or gave a little 45-degree angle on each of the sides of the bottoms. And then I drilled a hole in the underside of the bottom pieces of the legs to accept this little hardware, this little leveling leg. I knew that this table was not going to come out perfectly level when it was all assembled. So I wanted to make sure that I had a way to level the table after it was all assembled, and those leveling legs allowed me to do that. So I decided to use Dowel Joinery for this project. I've never really used this before, but I figured it'd be easy and quick, and it would allow me to hide the joinery fairly well. And it worked out really well. I made this little jig that would allow me to drill these holes that would accept the dowels in the same location on the mating pieces. And it wasn't perfect, but it was good enough that after I sanded the entire leg section, you couldn't see any kind of misalignment or anything like that. So I just again, using this little jig, I drilled holes for the dowels. The hardest part for this was, first you gotta line it up perfectly centered on centered horizontally on wherever you're drilling it, and then you gotta make sure when you drill it, you're drilling in perpendicular or plumb to that face. And some of my holes weren't perfect, but I could kind of force the two pieces together with the dowel in there, so it worked out okay. Doing it on a drill press would probably be the best bet, but these pieces are a little bit long, especially for my drill press, so I wasn't able to do that. Here's a better view of it. So I had a line on that jig that I could line up with that center line and then drill the hole. I had 2 holes in each joint. And then I just cut a dowel to little sections that I could stick in there and get everything nice and aligned. So then I had my leg section all assembled, or at least dry assembled. The next step was to sand everything and then glue it all together. I used construction adhesive. It was freezing this time when I was building this, so I figured construction adhesive would be a little bit better in that end grain joints, and it worked out well. And then I had to figure out how to attach everything to the underside of the table. So I drilled some holes. I did 3 holes in each leg assembly that would lag bolt into the tabletop. And then I also had that cross member that I had to bolt to each leg section. And then it was just a matter of finishing everything. I used Minwax Dark Walnut Stain on this project. That was what the customer was looking for. We did a couple test samples, took it over to her where she's going to be having this table and in their kitchen area. And that's what they decided on. I think it came out really well. I also added some clear polyurethane to the entire thing. And then I was able to assemble it, and it was all done. Alright guys, the farmhouse table is all done. I've delivered it to the customer and they seem to really like it, so I'm happy about that. In the past couple weeks, the customer had ordered 2 benches to go with the table. Here's one of them. I got one of them over there. So the 2 benches are done. I'm going to get those over to the customer and hopefully they love it, and this project is now behind me. I didn't film the process of building these benches. It's the same process as how I built the table. These are just a little bit smaller than the table, obviously, and a little bit of a design difference in the legs versus the table. But other than that, it's the same process, so I didn't feel like I needed to film that. But I hope you guys like this project. This has been the biggest project that I've worked on, both in time consumption and in the physical size of the actual project. It's been a great learning experience. It's been a great excuse to buy a planer, buy a jointer. So that was a great little second motivation for this project, and I hope you guys like watching it. I think that the final result compares to what some of the big stores sell, some of those expensive stores sell, and the design for this table kind of comes off a table that we saw online for tons of money, and we think we could do it a little bit cheaper here, so that's what we did, and I think it's a pretty comparable product. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know of the process on how to build this, what you guys would have maybe done differently, or different changes that I could have made to make this a little bit better. If you like this video, please like the video. Hit the like button. It really helps me out when you guys do that. And right now I'm looking at one really big project on my assembly table. I got another project over here getting ready to be prepped up. So I have a lot of projects coming soon. So if you guys want to stay up to date on all that stuff that I have coming out, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out when you guys do that. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching, guys. I really appreciate you guys who all watch these videos, and thank you very much. So have a great day.